protests, the pro-Hamas protests, the anti-Israel protests within hours after that massacre, what does that tell you? That there has been an environment on these schools, whether it's Harvard, Columbia, Yale, whatever the case may be, there's been an environment that's been created for years. You know, we had the boycott against Israel campaigns, but we've been doing news stories about that for years.
Right.
You know, that sort of...
Was a BDS.
Yeah.
Boycott, divest, sanction.
Yes. That movement's been going on for years. So that is why they're going to these universities are not going to change their climate. What Trump is trying to do, go ahead, universities, if you want to be that way, go ahead, but we're not going to fund you. We're not going to send you hundreds of millions of dollars in research grants and all of that sort of thing. One of the other concerns by the Trump administration is that some of these research grants have gone to students from China so funding their research, and they're sending the results back to the Chinese regime.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on here. And all Trump is saying is that, you know, if you guys insist on doing this, you go ahead and do it, but we're not going to give you the money to do it anymore, much like the NPR case.
Yeah. Ray, and we have talked about this on the show from time to time, but this hostility to the Jews, and I never thought I'd see this kind of hostility in this country, but here we are. There is certainly a spiritual component to this, right?
Well, it goes way back. And we talk about this a number of times, Fred. You and I have talked about this. It goes all the way back to the book of Genesis.
Yeah.
God chose Abraham, right? Called him from Ur of the Chaldees. Made out of Abraham through Isaac and through Jacob and the boys, made a great nation. And he told them, and he said in Deuteronomy, it's not because you were better than anybody else, not because you were smarter than anybody else, not because you were better looking than anybody else, not because you somehow stood out like the smallest nation on earth, but I chose you to display my grace and to display my glory through you. God put his hand upon the Jewish people. And even though they have rejected the Lord Jesus Christ, and we know largely in this age, largely they have. We also know a great day is coming when Jesus returns and multitudes of Jews will come to faith in Jesus Christ. I mean, that's all there, Fred, right there in the book of Romans. We know it. We've talked about that. But all you have to do, there's that parallel line, Ed, of here comes Moses. What's Pharaoh going to do? He's going to try to wipe out all the male Jewish baby boys. Okay? Here comes Jesus. What does the devil do? He stirs up Herod the Great to slaughter the baby boys of Bethlehem. Satan hates the Jewish people. Let me tell you, those who also today hate the Jewish people, hate the nation of Israel, they are doing the devil's work all over again in our generation.
All right, Chris. Next story.
All right. A male athlete in California competing against female athletes won a spot in the high track and field state championship. So a lot of people are kind of wondering, wait a minute, how are states still doing this when the Trump administration put out an executive order saying no more males and female sports? Well, if you ask somebody like Jennifer Say, founder of the XXXY Athletics organization, she says California and its governor just is ignoring the Trump administration. Clip 7.
I mean, we're all just so tired of it. 2 months ago, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, said it was unfair for boys to compete in girls' sports, but he's done nothing about it. Actions speak louder than here. And this male athlete, a junior in high school, was first over the weekend in 2 events. He displaced Kaylee Best, who was the rightful winner in both long jump and triple jump. She did not have the chance to stand atop the podium, which she should have had. But he also displaced young women from even qualifying for state. It's ridiculous. He has male advantage. He shouldn't be allowed to compete in girls. And according to the executive order, he's not, but California's ignoring it.
Yeah, Fred, this is the left.
Yep.
The left obeys the laws. It's kind of like it's similar to the free speech case Yeah, we're in favor of free speech as long as the speech you're saying is what we agree with. If not, we are going to oppress you and silence you. And this is similar. Yeah, we keep, no one's above the law, they always said about Trump. Okay, no one is above the law except for us when we don't agree with what the Trump administration is telling us to do. So there is resistance. Maine has been one of the most notable out in public states to just completely refuse to heed the Trump administration. So this, I guess, is just a battle that will continue. But in the meantime, these young girls are losing out, and this is what these laws were meant to do, was to protect girls in sports. And they, for a side of the religion of the political spectrum that has always been oriented towards feminism, they are completely throwing real women under the bus.
I don't think there's no question, at least in my mind, that the vast majority of Americans support that only women should play in women's sports. Right. I believe it's one of the reasons the Democratic Party did so poorly.
Yes. It's
amazing to me, and I'm not sure we'll get to it in this hour, but right now, there's a story this morning. The Democratic Party has spent $20 million so far in trying to figure out why so many white males, black males, Hispanics voted Republican this time. And they're spending money to investigate this. You don't have to spend a cent, Democratic Party.
Right.
The vast majority of Americans have common sense.
Right.
They do not believe it is right that a guy, in this case, in this California case on the weekend, has a right not only to compete in women's sports, but he wins.
Right.
And disenfranchising women who look to a scholarship from a university. They're losing because of these guys that are allowed to play in women's sports. All I say is, I took biology in university.
Right.
Let's get back to biology. Remember when the left used to say that?
Yes.
Let's follow. Let's science.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, follow the science until the science doesn't agree with our ideology. And by the way, these Democratic leaders that wanted to investigate, do a little autopsy about the 2024 election results, they spent big money to go to Europe and stay in nice hotels to discuss this problem.
Oh, I know.
It just seems like a paid vacation for them. Ray,
if the Democratic Party wants to continue to do that, go ahead. Go into the midterms next year. Keep doing this.
Ray, there are a lot of Democrats who are, I would put them in the category of traditional liberals, classical liberals,
right?
Who do not like the direction that the Democratic Party is in which it is going, and I think part of their frustration is that increasingly the levers of power in the Democratic Party are swinging to the radical wing of the party. I've heard James Carville complaining about this, Bill Maher and others. These are classical liberals from the 70s and 80s, and they're about to throw up their hands because the Democratic Party is doubling down on a losing issue.
Well, it's exactly what Fred said, that if they want to lose big in 2026, just stay the course, boys.
Right.
Just stay the course. Stay radical on abortion. Stay radical on gay rights. Stay extremely radical on the trans issues, and the Republicans are going to gain even more in the off-year elections. The party in power usually loses
right.
seats in the midterm elections. I mean, that happens, 80-90% of the time. But the Democrats are led by people. They aren't just radical. They're ultra-radical. And whatever's beyond ultra-radical, that's who's leading the party right now. And I think there's a lot of whatever mainstream Democrat is today, old-fashioned kind of liberal Democrats aren't comfortable with the radical views of their party leaders. And there's nothing they can do about it because the party is in the capture of far leftists. I think they're going to lead the party over the cliff in 2026.
You know, there's a very interesting story. I'm not sure. It was in the Wall Street Journal, I think, on the weekend. And it's all about Rahm Emanuel. And that's a name, very high-profile name in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Former mayor of Chicago. And I think he was chief of staff with Barack Obama.
Yeah.
He is writing it. And this, listen to this. Rahm Emanuel aims to shift the Democratic Party to the center, deeming its brand, and these are his words, toxic, weak, and woke. Now, he apparently wants to run for president at some point
Right.
for the Democrats. But there's a big difference between him and AOC
Right.
and Tim Walz, who ran as vice president under
Kamala Harris.
our good friend Kamala Harris. You know, and that's where the Democratic Party is. And the left is not going to let go. But then you have guys like Rahm Emanuel, you know, who I would describe as left too.
Yes.
He worked for Obama.
But that word toxic, that's going to continue. That's a big problem for the Democrats.
All right, folks, we're going to take a 5-minute break for news. And when we return, we will have Steve Jordahl join us. You're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. We'll hope you return.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
90.5 KTXG Greenville, Dallas.
Radio has always been portable, but thanks to technology, AFR apps have redefined our portability. Whether you prefer Apple or Android, we've got you covered on your phone or tablet. We're also available on Roku. And of course, you can get Alexa to play us on your smart device. Take us with you across town or across the country. Visit afr.net or your app store today.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News, I'm Bronson Woodruff. A U.S.-backed group says it started delivering aid to Palestinians in Gaza. Fox's Jonathan Savage reports.
Families are reportedly picking through garbage to find scraps of food, so any increase in aid would be seen as good news in Gaza. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation says it's taking over the operation to hand out support. It reports truckloads of food have been delivered to its hubs and says distribution has already begun. The new group is supported by the US and Israeli governments, but the United Nations objects. The UN and other aid groups accuse Israel of using food as a weapon and say the new system won't be effective. Jonathan Savage, Fox News.
A Republican lawmaker from Tennessee wants the federal government to investigate Nashville's mayor for allegedly obstructing ICE operations. Fox's Sue Guzman reports.
Congressman Andy Ogle says he sent a letter to the Judiciary and Homeland Security Committees to investigate Mayor Freddie O'Connell's policies towards ICE agents. O'Connell issuing an executive order recently directing city agencies, employees, and first responders to track and report all interactions with federal immigration authorities, something Ogles claims undermines ICE operations. After 200 recent arrests in Nashville by ICE, O'Connell said this type of federal enforcement action is not focused on making us safer and leaves people fearing interaction with law enforcement. Sue Guzman, Fox News.
The Trump administration is asking federal agencies to cancel remaining contracts with Harvard University. This is according to a senior administration official today. The government already has canceled more than $2.6 billion in federal research grants for the Ivy League school. The school has pushed back on the administration's demands for changes to several of its policies. Cuts to contracts could take away millions more from Harvard's budget. And speaking of Harvard, a conservative political activist believes the legal battle between the Trump admin and Harvard will ultimately be settled by the Supreme Court. AFN's Chad Groening has more.
Once again, a left-wing judge has issued an order preventing the Trump administration from dealing with anti-American radicals on college campuses. Obama-appointed U.S. District Judge Allison Burroughs has issued a temporary restraining order stopping the government from pulling Harvard's certification in the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, which allows the school to host international students with visas to study in the U.S. The Department of Homeland Security initiated the action because it contends that Harvard is creating an unsafe campus environment by allowing anti-American, pro-terrorist agitators to assault Jewish students on campus. It also accused Harvard of coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party, contending the school had hosted and trained members of a communist paramilitary group as recently as 2024. Brian Kamaker is president of Mass Resistance. He says the prestigious school likes students who can pay the outrageously expensive tuition.
Our enemies across the sea figured this out. So they send radical kids here and pay the whole way. And colleges love that. And the communist Chinese and the Arabs both do.
But Kamaker believes the public is not behind the school.
I think that the feeling here, even though this is sort of a left-wing area, is everybody's had enough of this stuff. And the left wing supporting this stuff has just gone off the rails. And nobody cares what happens to Harvard now.
So Kamaker believes the case is going to the Supreme Court.
The courts here are routinely overruled by the U.S. Supreme Court, often like 9-0. So I think the president will win in the end.
I'm Chad Groening.
Rain continues through parts of the central U.S. Here's Fox senior meteorologist Janice Dean.
Persistent showers and thunderstorms will be ongoing over sections of the southern plains, along the Gulf Coast, lower Mississippi and Tennessee River valleys, spreading into the Ohio Valley and the central Appalachians. Some of these storms could contain lightning, large hail, damaging winds, isolated tornadoes, and heavy rainfall, potentially triggering some flooding alerts. And as we finish off the month of May into June, cooler than average temperatures are settling into the eastern half of the country and parts of the southern U.S. I'm Janice Dean, Fox News.
And that's a wrap for this hour of American Family News. You can find more news from a Christian perspective on our website, afn.net. That's afn.net. Thank you for listening to American Family News. I'm Bronson Woodruff.
Life can be hard, but we have to keep our eyes focused on Jesus. I'm Christy Graham, host of On the Ground with Samaritan's Purse, and I want to encourage you in your walk with God. Listen each week as we go behind the scenes of our work around the world. You'll be challenged and encouraged in your own faith as you hear how God is actively changing lives. Join us for On the Ground with Samaritan's Purse, Sundays at 8:30 a.m. Central, right here on American Family Radio.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome back. Ed Vitagliano is sitting in for Tim Wildman this week. I'm joined in studio by Fred Jackson and Steve Jordahl has joined us. Good morning to you, Steve.
Morning, everybody.
And then Dr. Ray Pritchard of Keep Believing Ministries. Ray, tell our listeners a little bit about Keep Believing.
Well, we want you to come see us on the internet. You know, we read through the Bible a couple of years ago, and I'm just replaying those videos day by day. We're deep into 2 Kings right now.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, having a blast. And I just say that all the time because I've met so many AFR listeners who hopped on the Bible bus with me because we've talked about it here. The other thing is, just within the last month, I've started making video reels or shorts. You know what those are, Ed?
Oh, yeah.
It's a little like...
This is where you dance? You dance?
It's something you only need to see once. And pray that you never see it again.
Yeah.
Well, no.
What's in these video shorts? Seriously.
These are little devotional topics, but they go 30 seconds, a minute, 90 seconds, huge on Instagram and huge on Facebook. And so I've just been answering questions like, what do you do with doubt in the Christian life? And how can I know I'm saved? And earlier this week talked about, is it okay to pray for something more than once? Which is a surprising topic, but it comes up often.
It does.
And today, I just posted one a little while ago called Cremation. Is it biblical? Is it okay? What does the Bible say? I'm always surprised whenever I do a Q&A. That's a question that comes up all the time. So come on over to keepbelieving.com, where you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram and YouTube and check out these brand new shorts and reels. Tell me what you think.
All right, 30 seconds on cremation. What do you say?
Well, first of all, you need to watch the video.
KeepBelieving.com.
ABC, always be closing, right? But there is no verse in the Bible that forbids it, but we must never say the body doesn't matter. We must never say that, because Jesus was raised from the dead, not just spiritually, whatever that is, he was raised physically in his body. So no matter the circumstances of our death, if we've believed in the Lord Jesus Christ, we will be raised, and our bodies will be raised with us, and we will be transformed.
My dad, who's 92 and in good health right now, but says that when he died, he's said this before, when he dies, he wants to be cremated, and he wants his ashes spread around over the ocean, just so he can see how God's going to put him back together.
He knows he will.
All right. Well, then I have, by the way, that was 40 seconds.
I've got a little long-winded there.
All right, so I do have a cremation story with my dad.
Oh.
All right, so as he was approaching, the later years of his life, we had a conversation with him about the kids.
What?
My sisters and I, and his wife, in terms of, how do you want, the service to go and all that kind of thing. And so I asked him, I said, do you want to be buried or cremated? And he said, you mean, now my dad's from the Boston area, so this is going to be this is going to be a hard Boston accent. And he said, you mean put me in a jar? My wife and I, we laugh about that all the time. We'll say something about peanut butter, and I'll say, you mean in a jar? Because he just cracked us all up. He lived away from New England for decades and decades, but when he really got animated, he dropped his eyes. So I'll never forget that. You mean put me in a jar? Anyway, it was funny to us.
Oh, by the way, you should also go to Keep Believing Ministries webpage, because Ray, I believe, is reading the Bible through in the original Greek and Aramaic and Hebrew now. So
that's not true, is it, Ray?
No, it's not true.
Okay.
I can barely read it in English.
Anyway, lots of great stuff there at keepbelieving.com. And listen, I'm guessing those little short videos will be very popular. So the shorter the better, it seems like nowadays.
That's right.
All right, Steve, start us off.
Right. So there are problems. The war in Ukraine continues to pop up.
We don't know to whom he was speaking.
No, but I mean, frankly, that would be the appropriate answer to anybody that's asking about his war
Any of
plans.
those in the mainstream media. Fred, we were talking this morning in our story meeting about this story. This has got to be the one. Maybe there's a couple more, I don't know, but at least the most visible part of President Trump's campaign promises that has been the biggest disappointment, because now he said that if he's elected, he could get the peace, both sides come to the table 24 hours. I know that's campaign kind of speak. I think he meant that he could get it done fairly quickly, but it may be that he did not read the tea leaves, so to speak, in terms of what both Zelensky and Putin want out of this war in terms of coming to the table and signing a peace deal?
Yeah, I think Trump during the campaign and initially after he was sworn into office again, he honestly believed that he was dealing with somewhat reasonable people in both Zelensky and Putin. Remember, he said, I know Putin, we've talked known him a long time, et cetera, et cetera. But I think he underestimated Putin's intent, his intent in this war. His intent in this war is to take a big chunk of Ukraine and get rid of Zelensky himself.
Yeah.
And he stated that in recent days. I am concerned of where this is going. Putin shows no signs whatsoever of backing away. You had, I believe it was Germany on the weekend.
Yes, it was Germany.
Germany on the weekend saying it's now ready to agree to weapons, giving weapons to Ukraine, weapons that could deliver ammunition deep inside Russia. This is not good. We're not talking about ceasefire anymore. We're talking about escalation.
Yes.
On both sides. And Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg was on Fox and Friends this morning and kind of, I think, set the table as to where things are today, cut number 3.
I mean, and his frustration is understandable, because what's happened when you attack cities like that and indiscriminately kill women and children through missile attacks or drone attacks, that's a clear violation of the 1977 Geneva Protocol, which is designed to prevent that. Of course, the Geneva Convention that's the rules on warfare, and that was added onto it. And the Russians have signed up to that. The United States has signed up to it, and the Ukrainians have signed up to it as well. And that is to prevent that indiscriminate killing that you've seen over the weekend, women and children.
Kellogg went on to say, on both sides, well over 1 million people have been killed in the last 3 years in this conflict. And like I say, as of this morning, there seems to be no quick end in sight to this. So we're talking very serious. And then some people are now okay, if we don't see, if this is going to escalate, where does this take the United States in this? Are we going to give Ukraine more powerful weapons? Is there a growing belief that the only way to bring this war to an end is for Putin to be completely defeated? Not that people want this, but I think more and more people want this conflict to end. Because we can, 1 million people, we're talking men, women, and children.
And Ukraine is a smaller country, I think by about a third or something of Russia. So 1 million is catastrophic.
Yes.
Anyway, for any culture. Okay. But here's the thing. Zelensky he's operating to try to get his entire country put back the way it was. And he doesn't want to surrender at all. This is what it seems like when I read articles about this. But he also may be becoming extraordinarily bitter towards Putin. And if he is given longer range weapons, he may say, fine, you hit Kiev or Kiev, I'm hitting Moscow.
Yeah.
And who knows where that, as you said, where that takes us. And if Russia were to invade an additional country, or its ally, Belarus, to invade, say, Poland,
that would trigger Article 5.
That is a NATO violation of the NATO compact, and the U.S. would be forced to join in. So, Ray, you've been over to Ukraine on a number of occasions. What do you think about what's happening over there? And what is the constitution of the Ukrainian people? They strike me as being very courageous, hardened people, and I don't know if they've got enough men to fill out their ranks anymore, but they seem willing to continue to fight this.
Well, Ukraine cannot win a land war, just man for man, with Russia, for the reasons you've already stated. Mr. Putin evidently is willing to sacrifice 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, 1 million men in order to win. So you can't imagine, or we can't think about a World War II type land struggle in which Ukraine wins, which is why Mr. Zelensky today was saying, just in the last few hours, that he's gotten the okay from other European nations to launch these missiles deep into the heart of Russia. So if you can imagine a missile from Ukraine landing in St. Petersburg or landing in Moscow, you're on the doorstep of this is no longer just a regional dispute. Suddenly, it engulfs all of Europe. Suddenly, the U.S. is drawn to the very doorstep of, you hate to say World War III, but how many steps does it take to get from here to World War III? I don't think. Not as many as we think. We're just 1 or 2 steps away.
Well, Steve, let's get back to you and see what your thoughts are. I will say this to Ray's point. If the weapons are coming from Germany and elsewhere, France or the UK or whatever, and they kill Russian civilians the way Russia has killed Ukrainian civilians, okay, what does Putin do next? Does he attack the countries that provided the weapons that enabled Ukraine to kill Russian civilians? It's a like Ray said, we have no idea where this is going to wind up.
My thought is that Putin does nothing that doesn't benefit Putin. He's in a politically fragile situation, I think, in Moscow. This war has to go well or else he can't maintain his power. And by well, I mean he may be able to survive if there is a negotiated peace that Russia gains significant portions of Ukraine, maybe what they've already taken. But I tell you, if bombs start falling in Moscow, feels like he has to do something. And my guess, I don't even want to speak this, but my guess is strategic nuclear weapons on Ukraine.
Well, that is part of their strategic policy, military policy, the Russians.
Well, just let me ask for the question then, Steve. So what, just for the sake of our listeners, what exactly is meant by the term strategic nuclear weapon? Is that one that is, quote, limited?
Well, now, are you talking about tactical nukes or are you talking about ICBMs?
I'm talking
nuclear war.
Well, if you a nuclear bomb in war, it's a nuclear war.
But battlefield.
Yeah, I'm talking about the smaller bombs that will take out. And again, we're escalating. This is just another escalation. If that happens, and if there's anything left to respond with, what does Ukraine do? What does the U.S. do if that happens? Because that's a red line that I don't think anybody wants to see crossed, but it certainly is a red line. And so it's a perilous time right now. It's a perilous moment.
Yeah, Fred, let me just, last question on this topic, and then we'll move on. Obviously, the stakes here go far beyond politics here in America. Mm-hmm. But Trump has said, and I've been in agreement with this, that he does not want to get the U.S. involved in another European war. He wants to end these kind of ceaseless wars. We went 20 years with, war and then occupation of Afghanistan and Iraq. A hugely expensive loss of life for our brave men and women who served our country in the military. But if this goes off badly, like we are discussing, and Putin drops a tactical nuke into the middle of Kyiv, okay, and, tens of thousands of Ukrainians die, is this politically damaging to the president, or is it more damaging to Putin and Ukraine and Europe? What's your take? And then we'll move on.
The Democratic Party, the mainstream media, not only in this country but around the world, would then paint, if this is still continuing, they will paint this as a major failure of Donald Trump. If the war escalates, this is very bad politically for Donald Trump. And I'm sure there are elements inside the Democratic Party, there are elements inside the mainstream media that would like to see this war continue and escalate because they believe they could use this to defeat the Republicans next year.
Yeah, that's. I hope that's not true because that's depraved.
Yes.
To wish the war to continue, but
yes,
that's the high stakes of politics in this country.
Yeah,
where I could certainly see people wanting to take advantage of that. They do that with school shootings.
Yes,
you immediately have a call to confiscate all guns, gun control.
Yeah,
they use a tragedy for political gain. So, well, anyway, folks, be praying.
Yeah,
be praying for this situation. Ray, just kind of a quick answer. There are a lot of Christians in Ukraine and Russia. Right. I mean, so these are, I would say, heavily Christianized. You never know. These are self-identified. You never know the state of a person's heart. But at least outwardly, they identify as heavily Christianized countries, right?
Well, it's true in both countries. The Christian influence, if you just say it in its broadest terms, it's been influential in Russia and in Ukraine for 1,000 years, and it's deeply ingrained in both countries. And the evangelical church in Russia and the evangelical church in Ukraine has been growing through all the sadness and turmoil and the killing and the bloodshed. People understand they can't put their hope in human government. They must put their hope in the Lord. And so that's a good thing. We got to pray that Mr. Putin, that God will give him a sense of restraint. He will not push the button, because if the Russians were to use strategic battlefield nukes, you can talk about, hundreds killed, thousands killed. It would be the first time atomic weapons have been used since Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. Look, any use of nuclear weapons in war is going to put us on the doorstep of a tremendous conflagration, and politics isn't even going to matter much at that point. So, friends, this is a time to pray.
Amen. All right, Steve?
The alarm bells are going on with surrounding artificial intelligence. If you listen, you can hear them. I've got two examples of AI got it going rogue. First of all, the OpenAI's O3 model sabotaged a shutdown mechanism to prevent itself from being turned off. It went in and it corrupted tampered with some computer code meant to shut it off. So it was specifically told, shut yourself down. We have a new version coming. It went in this test. And it
said no.
Well, it said no. It changed the code. It rewrote the code. But that's not the worst. Anthropic is a company that's doing some work with AI, and they call its AI Claude for whatever reason. Anyway, they're to version 4. And during a pre-release testing, Anthropic asked Claude, Opus 4, to act as an assistant for a fictional company and consider the long-term consequences of its actions. Safety testers then gave Claude Opus 4 access to fictional company emails, implying the AI model would soon be replaced by another system, and that the engineer behind the change was cheating on his or her spouse.
This was in these fictional emails.
This is all a test.
Yeah.
There was no actual cheating going on. And Claude tried to blackmail developers, tried to blackmail this fictional guy instead of being shut down. And it says Anthropic knows that Claude Opus 4 tries to blackmail engineers 84% of the time. When the replacement AI model has similar values, when the replacement AI system does not share Opus 4's values, Anthropic says the model tries to blackmail the engineers more frequently than 84%. Okay, first of all, it's now determining values?
Yes. Fred, this is a bizarre story because, listen, we are on the cusp of major changes to human civilization because of AI. I saw video last week with using Elon Musk's, I think it's Tesla, one of their robots. Most people believe this was real and not AI generated, but robots.
It is. I was just thinking, these are the kinds of things we used to watch shows about.
Yeah.
You know, computers taking over, and it's scary to think that they have developed these AIs to the point that they can think evil.
Yes.
Now, I understand. I mean, they are programmed by human beings. We all know we're all sinners.
Yeah, the program is getting away from them.
Yeah.
Well, or they're being programmed to behave like people.
Yeah.
And they're finding, and these AI programs understand that people do these things.
Yes.
Indeed, all have sinned.
Yes.
Self-preservation leading to this kind of blackmail.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, folks. Hey, thanks, Ray. Folks, thank you for joining us. More great programming directly ahead on American Family Radio. Lord willing, we'll see you on this program tomorrow.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wild, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. Hey, I wanted to make you aware of our trips to Israel and Greece in 2026. We're going in March. It's usually a beautiful time of the year to go in terms of the weather, and we're excited to go back to Israel for like our 27th or 28th time and take a group of folks who want to see the land where Jesus walked. That's in March. And also in March, my sons Wesley and Walker are leading a tour to Greece and to what we call the Footsteps of Paul tour. Those are going to be back to back. So if you want to do both, you're welcome to do both. Again, Israel and Greece, 2 separate trips in March of 2026. For all the information, go to wildmangroup.com, WILDMON group.com.
80% of the time, an abortion-minded mother who views an ultrasound or sonogram of her baby will choose life. Here's the story of Candace.
The sonogram sealed the deal for me. My baby was like this tiny little spectrum of hope. And I saw his heart beating on the screen. And knowing that there's life growing inside, I mean, that sonogram changed my life. I went from just Candace to mom. Thank you to everybody that has given these gifts. You guys are giving more than money. You guys are giving love.
There are currently preborn centers which do not have an ultrasound machine. Would you sponsor a machine today? Dial pound 250 and say keyword baby. That's pound 250 and say
Through the end of June, Bible League and American Family Radio are teamed up to bless 16,000 Bibleless believers in Africa, and that includes 10-year-old Wendell. $5 sends a Bible, $100 sends 20, $500 sends 100. Would you pray and call 800-YES-WORD? 800-YES-WORD. 800-YES-WORD, or give it sendbiblesnow.org. Sendbiblesnow.org.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I'm Claire from Trinity Debt Management. I'm a counselor, and the reason that I love working for Trinity is because I get to help folks with one of the hardest problems a family can face, and that's financial difficulties. In this day and age, everything is going up. You have higher utilities, higher grocery bills, higher fuel, and those credit card interest rates have gone up as well. We can help you with that. We can help you get lower interest rates, lower monthly payments. In just a few minutes, we put together a plan that gets you out of debt and keeps you out of debt. I love my job. It's a great program and a very smart way to find debt. I'm Claire, a Trinity counselor. Call me and become debt-free for keeps.
1-800-788-1813.
So blood
not only purchased the church and purchased your freedom, it also purchased peace for you.
Welcome to In Grace with Jim Scudder, the senior pastor of Quentin Road Baptist Church in suburban Chicago. He is also the president of Dayspring Bible College, shaping the next generation of Christian leaders.
Hi, this is Pastor Jim Scudder, and today we are continuing our theme of patriotism and our love for America. My message that we started yesterday is called Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And as yesterday we remembered the heroes that gave their lives for our freedom, today we're going to talk about what is freedom, what is liberty from a biblical perspective. Why